For the past few seasons, there's been a constant theme when it comes to Ubisoft's policy on nerfing operators. And Year 6 doesn't seem to be an exception. You've all seen the patch notes, so I don't want to regurgitate them. But I do want to focus on a very specific set of gameplay changes. As you know, the current meta is dominated by bulletproof gadgets and gadgets that protect those bulletproof gadgets. I'm talking about Maestro Evil Eyes, Melusi Banshees, deployable shields, Jaeger ADS, and Wamai magnets. Now, like I said before, this combination of operators has been a pretty big target for nerfs over the past year, and its power level has decreased over time. But I think it's still fair to say that Maestro, Melusi, Jaeger, and Smoke make up a pretty significant part of the meta. And apparently, Ubisoft seems to dislike that, so they are once again nerfing bulletproof gadgets. Throughout Year 6, they plan on making changes to Goyo, Mira, Maestro, and Melusi, while at the same time introducing another counter to all of them called the Gone 6. Goyo loses his shields, and instead you can just place the explosive canisters wherever you want. But of course, if you pick Goyo, you want the shields, not the explosive canisters. The nerf to Melusi is that the gadget kind of opens up once you are in range of it, and that allows you to just shoot it. Before, you had to walk up all the way and then melee it, which of course left you quite exposed. For the Mira and Maestro nerf, we don't have gameplay yet, but they are saying that you will be able to melee them, which would kind of block their vision. I'd assume it's going to look something like what Zeman showed in their Mira rework idea. Now, all of that is not live right now. It's what Ubisoft is planning for Year 6. The only thing that we get straight away with the release of Crimson Heist is the Gone 6, which is a secondary weapon that is basically a mini Zofia launcher. You get one charge, and you can use it to blow up bulletproof utility. At the moment, it's available to Glass, Dokebi, Lion, Finka, Gridlock, Amaru, Yana, and Zero. And out of those, I can definitely see Lion, Yana, and Zero being picked a little bit more often now. Alright, so those were the relevant changes, and individually, I don't mind any of them. Especially Maestro and Melusi probably are too strong, and the new secondary launcher is very nice for operator diversity. However, if all of those changes go live together at the same time, that's where it gets concerning. Those might just kill off the idea of playing around bulletproof gadgets entirely. And now, some of you are probably like, well, that's cool, that's exactly what we wanted, right? But here, I think you should be careful what you wish for. For the sake of the argument, let's assume that the changes actually make it so Maestro, Melusi, Jaeger, and Wamai all become kind of bad. What would that mean for gameplay? First of all, it would take the power out of power positions. Spots like Elbow when defending Basement on Oregon, or Pixel when defending Cocktail on Cafe are heavily reliant on bulletproof utility, and they are far from the only ones. The idea is that you pick a nice position on the map and then dump all of your utility in there. Deployable shields, Maestro Evil Eyes, Melusi Banshees, and Jaeger ADS. If the attackers then want to clear a position like this, they are forced to waste a lot of time, utility, and drones. And once the attackers jump through all the hoops to clear the position, the defenders just fall back towards the site. This leaves the attackers in a 5v5 with little to no utility left and almost out of time. Naturally, the following execute is going to be a mess, and the defenders usually have a pretty easy time shutting down the scrambling attackers. What I'm trying to say is that the current meta for defenders is to passively play around utility with the primary objective of wasting time. Very rarely are you going to see a Pixel player, for example, who is aggressively peeking into piano with the intention of winning a gunfight. It just doesn't fit the playstyle. But of course, this utility-based playstyle only exists because bulletproof utility is so strong. So if you were to take those away, you would carve out a pretty huge part of the current metagame. But obviously, there can't be a strategy vacuum. If you take away one part, something else has to fill the gap. And that's where the danger lies. What would replace bulletproof gadgets? Obviously, I don't know, right? It could be Mousy Mute, it could be Tachanka Smoke Goyo, or it could be something entirely new. But what if, and this is my concern, there is no other utility-based playstyle? If the defenders can't win with utility, then they have to win with gunfights. And that could lead to some sort of a team deathmatch meta, where the defenders are just randomly picking angles, hoping that they can get a kill. And honestly, that's just not the kind of Rainbow that I would enjoy watching. Now, I realize that this is a very self-centered concern. Rainbow might very well be more fun to play and to watch with that kind of a meta, but it's just not my cup of tea, and I suspect that I'm not the only one who thinks like that. Okay, so that's the doomsayer future, but how realistic is that actually? First of all, I think that there already are a number of Pro League teams that don't really play around the utility win condition, but rather rely on their individual skill and try to win rounds by winning gunfights. So the concept itself is not unrealistic, and it's also not unrealistic to assume that more and more Pro League teams could adopt that kind of playstyle. That being said, a meta development like that is pretty much limited to sites that rely on power positions. And there's actually a surprising amount of sites that just don't really rely on bulletproof gadgets. I'm mainly talking about all the basement sites. For example, Consulate Basement, Clubhouse Basement, or Cafe Ground Floor. I mean, don't get me wrong, Maestro, Melusi, and Shields aren't bad picks on those sites, and you are still playing around the win condition of wasting time. But you are accomplishing that through the roam game. You're playing Mute Mossy Vigil, you're playing the map, you're shooting drones, and you are continuously falling back. This general philosophy is entirely unaffected by the changes to Maestro, Melusi, and Goyo. And so on those sites, the defenders probably wouldn't drastically change their playstyle. But on all of the sites that revolve around power positions, there is room for concern. I mean, what are you supposed to do against an Aviator mainstairs take if you can't really play mainstairs? At the moment, the mainstairs Shield, Banshee, Evil Eye setup is what's wasting a majority of the attacker's time and utility. And if that didn't exist, what exactly are the defenders supposed to be doing? Again, I can tell you what they are not going to do. They are not just going to sit on site waiting for the inevitable. You know how a lot of pros go for those really aggressive plays when they are in a 1v3 situation? Well, in this doomsday scenario, they could start going for exactly the same kind of plays while they are in a 3v3 situation, just because they feel so desperate by being trapped on site. But let's take a step back. So far, we've kind of assumed that Maestro, Melusi and power positions in general just become entirely unplayable, but that's not really what's going to happen. The nerf to Maestro's Evil Eye, for example, is actually pretty irrelevant, right? I mean, Evil Eyes are usually placed outside of the attacker's melee range. And sure, the change to Goyo is a pretty big nerf, but it is definitely still feasible to get 2 deployable shields into your lineups. It's really only the Melusi change that is going to have an impact on how power positions are played out. Her Banshees did get quite a bit easier to counter, especially if you have a teammate with you who can shoot the open Banshee for you. But even if Melusi's pick rate went down to 0%, which I don't think it will, it's still possible to play power positions. They might be a bit weaker, but it's really not that big of a deal. So ultimately, to answer the question in the title, no, I don't think Ubisoft has gone too far. Yet. If these changes are the only ones that we're going to see, we're probably not going to end up in a team deathmatch meta. However, being afraid of something like that is a valid concern in my opinion. Ubisoft has made it clear that they aren't huge fans of the current meta, and that's fine, a lot of people aren't. I just hope that they don't accidentally overshoot their goal. If you bring out the pesticide to kill off the bugs, you better make sure it doesn't destroy the crops. Alright, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something new, and thanks for watching.